Na-Yeon collapsed against the wall, tucked away in a fairly large storage room, the monsters outside having quietened down when they could no longer see her in the classroom. The one person she had that still cared for her had locked her in this classroom before walking off to probably turn. Just thinking of Mrs. Park was causing her tears to shed as she put her hands back over her mouth to muffle her cries. The last thing she needed was those monsters hearing her and Mrs. Park's sacrifice being in vain. So she laid on the cold floor, silently sobbing into the night, till only exhaustion took her. Cheong-san was still mad as he thought back to Jung-soo. Out of all the things, the last thing he expected, the last was for people to start killing each other, especially for something so stupid. But Mrs. Park had followed that traitor out there to go save her, and he didn't know what to do. A part of him wanted to follow and save Mrs. Park because they all promised each other that they were all going to get out of here. Losing 3 people this fast, though, was a morale killer. That much he could see with how everyone looked so hopeless. Even Namra had tried to lift his spirits, but he just needed some time to himself. The numbers looked bad. If they kept losing people like this, they wouldn't make it to the end of the week. But deep in his hatred and anxiety, a face kept on appearing as vivid images jumping in and out. Na-Yeon. He hated her, and not too long ago wanted to kill her for what she had done, but now, an hour or more after she and Mrs. Park disappeared, he can only see her sobbing face as she cursed them out before she opened the door and ran, preferring the monsters than to be with them. A small part of him had screamed, "Stop her," but to save her after what she had done, he did his best to silence that voice. She was a murderer, and she should die out there. But the more he told himself that, the weaker his will got. When had he become this person who just wishes people died? He understood that the situation changed him, but he still wanted to save everyone. He stood up, weapon in hand, as his eyes locked on the blocked door, drawing everyone's attention. "Cheong-san?" Anjo asked, looking at him in concern. She moved closer, holding his hand, and he just looked at their hands together. He had always liked her, but the small glance she gave at Soo-hyuk, one of many he had seen, had been enough to tell him she doesn't see him quite the same. He broke off her hold, knowing she sometimes used it to get what she wanted from him. But seeing her and Soo-hyuk still hurt him a bit more, and only making that quiet voice in the back of his head shouting at him to go get those 2 louder. A first hesitant step towards the door, then another quickly followed before everyone in the group quickly rushed to him, stepping forward to block him. "Wait, wait, wait," Junyoung said, holding him by the shoulders. "What's the big idea?" He looked around at the group before locking eyes on the door again. "I'm going to get them," he said resolutely, even though his voice was shaky. "What? Why?" Anjo asked. Mrs. Park knew what she was doing, and Na-Yeon murdered Gyeong-soo. I know, but I just need to. He couldn't explain it, but he tried to push through. Then Soo-hyuk held his arm. "Then I'll go with you." Cheong-san didn't know what to think of this. The last thing he needed was him tagging along and possibly getting killed. If he died doing something stupid, he would rather it be him alone. "No, I am going to do this alone. Plus, I can check around the building if there's anything else I can use to contact the outside world." Anjo started protesting. "No, we are not doing that. Guys, quiet." Everyone went silent as they listened out for any sound outside the door. Luckily, they heard nothing. "I'm just going to do a quick check and then come back. We were already planning to do that tomorrow." "Yes, we know, but," Anjo tried to argue. "But nothing doing it now is actually better. We saw that they can't see that well, so going at night is better, so I'm doing it now." Soo-hyuk was once again offering to go with him, and Cheong-san declined and moved closer to the door. "As soon as I leave, you close the door and don't open it unless you hear me ask you to. Even then, don't rush it." "Are you sure about this?" Junyoung asked, and he just replied back with a nod. Anjo rushed forward to hug him, and he returned it because despite everything else, she was still his childhood friend. With one last quiet look at the group and silent nods around, they quietly opened the door as he looked out and around first, and seeing nothing down the halls. He gave them a thumbs up, before walking across the staff room to a door for the maintenance hatch on the side and slightly opening it in case he needed to hide quickly. Then, slowly backing away, he started walking down the hall, turning once more to see his friends closing and barricading the door. He took a deep breath, strengthening his resolve, and turned around weapon in hand, proceeding down the hall. "I don't know why I am doing this, but I will save you,"